Welcome to Transformation with Martine. Conquer everything and compromise nothing. This show brings you real, raw, and vulnerable conversations. If you have never liked small talk and have been on a personal growth journey for a long time, stay tuned as Martine and her guests share empowering stories. Now is the time to own your past and look toward your future with hope. Believe in your dreams, and all that you want to achieve is possible. Transformation Coach Martine helps you accept and love you for you. It's time to listen to your heart and tap into your unlimited potential. You have the answers you need inside. Sometimes you just need the right guide to help allow transformation to happen. Transformation with Martine starts now.
Welcome to Transformation with Martine, where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. Happy Friday, everyone. For those of you who don't know, my show is all about hope, and we are live every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. And the guests that I invite on this show are resilient human beings. They have overcome a lot of things. And this is just a place where we grow together and have real, raw, authentic conversations. Today, I'm really excited to introduce to you one of a new friend, a new acquaintance in my life that we came together through another wonderful acquaintance and friend, actually, friend of mine for 20 years, Evelyn Knight. So yeah, we met recently, and welcome, Prerna Richards.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to join you on this. It sounds like an amazing conversation all about resiliency and hope. What could be better, right?
Oh, absolutely. So both you and I, we are coaches, and we came to this world of coaching because of things that we went through and things that we wanted to see changed and done. And I myself, as my guests, regular listeners know that, I came from a pretty rough childhood and went through a lot of different challenges and in my life, and not just what I went through then, but even a diagnosis of cancer made me see that, life is short, and there are so many things that we are taught if we decide to take those lessons that come to us, whether it's a diagnosis, whether it's a rough childhood, whether it's any changes in life. It could be as simple as, and it's not simple, but becoming maybe an empty nester. Life is always changing. That's the only thing we can count on, right? Change. Yeah. So I
heard a phrase, and maybe you've heard of this. I heard a phrase once that always resonates with me with change. Mm-hmm. That, they said change is a constant.
Yes.
And you can take that to the bank. But you can either look at change as an opportunity, mm-hmm. or you can look at change as a challenge.
Yeah.
Based on how you're looking at it, changes how you go through change. So if it's a challenge, already the mindset is, this is going to be so hard. Oh my God, what am I going to do?
Yep.
But if you look at it as an opportunity, it changes your perspective. Like, okay, mm-hmm. we're going to do something new and different.
Yeah.
So much to do with the mindset, right?
Absolutely. And I even remember, just as even a young person, and I've said this many times on the show, but I always saw, even when I felt like I was in this cave and trying to kind of hide, I always saw like these cracks of light, and I knew that was God. To me, it was God. I'm a God girl,
Me too.
I knew something was there. And there was even though it was really a tumultuous, hard time, there was also like some joy. Like I knew something good was coming.
Yeah.
So how about for you? Like what led you on this transformational journey?
So, a lot, you mentioned growing up in the childhood, and mm-hmm. My dad passed away when I was 14. And mm-hmm. so that was a very big change in my life. And I clearly remember the person I was before that happened, the person I became after that happened. Mm-hmm. And there's many things happen in life that make you really lean into your faith. Mm-hmm. And faith is one that's been consistent. And I'm happy that, you recognize the hand of God. And I'm a big God girl, and I see God's hand. Mm-hmm. But in terms of transformation, as a grown up, as a person, So I've been in the field of early childhood now for 38 years. This has been my life. This is my calling. I feel very strongly this is my personal legend. Wherever I can do to contribute to make life better for children has always been my focus. And before I formed my own company, which is very recent, it's only 5 years ago, something happened in my life that forced me to take this path of owning my own business. This was never my plan, but God had a plan.
Yes.
So very briefly, I can share with you what prompted me to start my business. I was working for an organization. I was the vice president over there, vice president of the early childhood division. I was very happy in my role. I was very content. I was working with a team that I loved, that respected me. I respected them. So I was not seeking another position. But there's another school in Dallas, which is famous for being kind of the best, the cream of the crop for social emotional learning. They approached me, they found me, and they started pursuing me to go join their team. It was very interesting because I was not looking. It was kind of hesitating, but then I'm also a big believer in the universe when things come and the things align. And I said, okay, maybe this is something I'm meant to do. Maybe this is something I should walk the path with, right? And they had a very intensive interview process, like 4 or 5 interviews, meet with this person, meet with this person, meet this team. Like they were very thorough.
Yeah.
So finally, I did decide to take the position. It was a early childhood director's position. It was overseeing the 3-year-olds to first grade. And because the school's reputation in Dallas is so high, I really thought that I had arrived, that I had finally reached a school that I had been dreaming of, waiting for, like this. But when I got there, even though they were very known for trauma informed, what I had not realized was I was the one who's going to be traumatized after getting there.
Oh, wow.
I was just like, what on earth is happening? On the surface, on the outside, the school had this impression that's very stable leadership. Everybody was there for a long time, but underneath the 4 or 5 people that you saw in the community, underneath massive staff turnover, massive staff burnout. So they had strategies to look after children for trauma and social emotional, and that's what they were famous for, or are famous for. But it was not designed for grown-ups. So one of their philosophies was, we bring you in, we strip you down and rebuild you. And they took that literally. So it was very traumatizing, confusing, conflicting, because I thought I had been brought into this position because of my experience and background. But they wanted to strip me down of my experience and knowledge and expertise and build me up again by being kind of dipped in with this mindset. So that was very traumatic year. And I felt my light diminishing during that time. I felt my motivation going. I felt my enthusiasm going. And I felt like I was losing myself, and I was becoming part of the wallpaper and just kind of disappearing from life. And my husband kept saying to me, this is not good for you. You're losing yourself in this. I doubted myself. My self-confidence was gone. My self-respect was gone. My self-esteem was damaged. It was very, very hard to be part of that team.
I imagine.
So you had the title of the director, but my hands were tied behind my back. I could not do anything. Like I had no freedom to do anything, couldn't implement anything. And everything that had worked in other places was not working now because they just didn't want to hear it. It needed to be in a certain mindset way. So I resigned from that position a month before the school year ended. I was only there for 1 year. I resigned in May. I finished the school year in June. But in that year, I saw depression very close up front, traumatized for sure. Like, this word trauma is real, and the effects of trauma is real, and it shows up in all kinds of places. So having gone through that, and I had already gone through depression before in my life. So I was back in it, back in the very dark place. And, then Together We Grow was created after I resigned, and I didn't know what my future was going to be, and I didn't know where I was going to go and what I was going to do. And faith was what took me through it. Leaning on God is what took me through it. And during that year, when I created Together We Grow, right after I resigned, Together We Grow was formed that August of that year after leaving that school. And I was just literally so desperate, and I didn't know what to do. It took a lot of courage. It took a lot of resiliency to bounce back. It took a lot of self-work to build myself up again with confidence and self-esteem. So coaching is what naturally happened, because I had mentors in my life and coaches in my life that had helped me. And I have a very, very strong desire to be of service and make a difference. But again, in the beginning, I never thought this was going to happen. And if I'm being completely honest, that first year I prayed and I cried a lot. Like, please, God, just give me a full-time job. This is too hard to do this on my own. I can't do this. And every time I would get desperate, a door would open, a contact would reach out, a network would happen, and I would walk through the path. And I'm like, okay, I'll walk through. Okay, I hear what you're saying. Okay, I need to walk this path. Okay, as hard as it is, I'm going to do this. So yeah, my heart goes out to anybody who is in a job, who doesn't feel like they belong, who doesn't feel respected at their work, who is feeling like I'm disappearing as a person. My heart goes out to you. It's not worth it, is what I would say. Find yourself something else.
And sometimes that's a hard place, because you're probably counting on the income. You need it. It's scary to make that move. And entrepreneurship is not for the weak.
It is not. It is not. And so much learning happens, and so much growth happens, and things that you're not comfortable of selling yourself or putting yourself out there. You have to lean into it.
Yeah, you do. You do. And it's a mindset thing as well, to shift from employee to CEO and founder of your own firm or company or whatever. It's a hard shift.
It's a very hard shift mentally. But again, faith comes into it. I'm following the breadcrumbs from God, is what I'm going to be honest and tell you. I'm literally following the breadcrumbs from God, and I'm trusting God to guide me life through this journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to take a short break, but we'll be back in just a moment to talk more about taking those steps and just listening to God or the universe, however you look at it. And really just believing in yourself, because you know in your heart that it's what you're meant to do. And sometimes that taking that leap is tough. So we will be right back, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Prerna Richards, and we are talking about taking that leap of faith and stepping into entrepreneurship, listening to God's wisdom. We are God girls, but if you're an universe person, that's totally awesome as well.
There's a word, Martine, maybe you've heard of this word, ikigai. So
what is that?
Ikigai.
Oh, okay.
Ikaigai. So for the people who are not God people or universe people, the Japanese have come up with a word for it. It's called ikigai.
Okay.
And what it stands for, it has four aspects to it. One, doing something in life that you're passionate about. Second, that you are actually talented and passionate at the same time. So you have the passion, but you also have the know-how, you have the skill set, and you're talented. The third is that you can make a living out of it. And the fourth is that there's a need. So you're meeting a need, and you can make a living out of it, and you're taking a chance, and this is your life legend or your calling in life, and you're making a difference, and you're living life through that. So following God's footsteps is what we were talking about earlier, just breadcrumbs from God. I completely feel like my business, Together We Grow, for me is the ikigai. All four aspects have come together. So it was a calling. I had to step into it.
Yeah. Okay. So you said meeting a need, making a living, making a difference.
So having a passion is the first thing. You
Yeah.
get excited about something, you're passionate about something, it's your love, it's your jam, it's your spice, whatever. And then you actually have the gift or the talent to make that passion come to life. Like you can actually
Okay.
work on that. So passion, talent, you can make a living, and there's a need in the world that you're filling a need through your passion, through your talent. And that's how you can make a living
Okay.
out of it.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's totally
Of
cool.
course. Yeah.
Ikigai, you said.
Ikigai. I'll send you the image to go
Okay.
with it. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I actually put a post on it on my Facebook and Instagram recently.
Yeah. So I was thinking about another colleague, which I could say her name. She actually has a well, she has a show as well. But she was kind of like in a position too where she wasn't really thinking entrepreneurship either, even though she had started a business. She wasn't really thinking of doing all the things she was doing, but she was let go from her career. Didn't want it, but let go from her career. And she's, oh crap, what am I going to do? I've got so many balls in the air. I have so many things going. But she will say now that's the best thing that ever happened to her.
Yeah.
Are you the type of person, and I am, so I will totally own that I'm the type of person that sometimes needs a bricks dropped on my head, like my cancer diagnosis. I never would have left being a paralegal. I never would have left corporate had this had not happened to me. I know I wouldn't have. It was too steady. It was good money.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have left it. Even though I always had this passion to serve and help, especially women. So are you the type that needs a brick on your head, or are you just like, you were sad and you decided to do something else and,
No, I think it was very much clear to me that this was a path that I had to walk. It was a path of resistance in the beginning. And the
Mhm.
more I've done it, the more I'm getting into the flow of it. And it's so
Yeah.
rewarding and it's so meaningful to help and make a difference. But I'm also a big believer in signs and omens
Mhm.
and such.
Okay.
And so, I can see that, okay, maybe I need to learn something from this. Maybe this is a lesson. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise.
Mhm.
Um, maybe it's for my benefit. I do believe that things happen for me and not to me.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm a big believer of that things are happening for me. And maybe I don't understand the whole picture. Maybe I don't agree with it. Maybe it's confusing, but I'm going to trust the process that is for
Mhm.
me and not to me. And
Yeah.
it'll be okay. We'll get through. It'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So what brought your passion for children? Like I know, like I mentioned our colleague before, Evelyn Knight, I know why she started. What was your ultimate passion to get into early childhood education?
So I don't know. It seems like it's part of my DNA. I have always
Mm-hmm.
connected with children when I was little. My mom even tells me that anytime I would walk into a place, immediately I would be like connected with the children.
Mm-hmm.
So that seems to be part of my DNA.
Yeah.
I just have a way that I understand children in a way
Mm-hmm.
that maybe other grown-ups don't. I thought everybody does, but I'm realizing not everybody doesn't do that.
Yeah.
So it was a natural inclination, wanting to spend time with them, their
Mm-hmm.
innocence, their sweetness, their
Yeah.
openness, their curiosity. These are qualities that I feel like I still have some of them in me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a very curious person and I love
Yeah.
learning. The joy of the newness gets me very
Mm-hmm.
excited.
Yeah.
So that was always there. But then again, my career path has taken me through where I've been, training and coaching and helping and running organizations and overseeing staffs of 100 and such in
Mm-hmm.
early childhood spaces. So it was a very natural progression, and wanting to contribute. I don't know if you've read this book, The Alchemist, but I
Yes.
love this book, and that book
Mm-hmm.
talks about your personal legend. Well,
Yep.
making the world a better place for children happens to be my personal legend.
Mm-hmm.
And so it seems like a no-brainer to me. When I was in India, I did do interior design as my degree. But
Uh-huh.
as soon as we got married and we had our daughters, I was like, oh, no, 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 no. Somebody else is not going to raise them. I am
Mm-hmm.
going to do this. And then
Yeah.
life happened. I started going to the schools where they were enrolled and I started volunteering. And the next thing you know, that director is like, why are you volunteering? Come take a CDA, come take this. And so far, 38 years later, here I am.
Yeah. And, I think you're talking about like always been curious. I think that's what makes a good coach. I am too. That is one thing I'm confident in, is coaching, and curiosity is part of it. I've always been so curious about how other people think, different cultures, different, just the way people think and explore, and all
the brain,
that.
the whole psyche.
Yeah.
I could talk about the brain for children, for grown-ups. I'm just like fascinated with this brain, and the more I learn, I'm just like, my goodness, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Keep learning.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. So children and parenting, and I mentioned to you when we were talking a little bit before, earlier today and all that, like there's so many different ways to parent, and I made a lot of mistakes. I wish that I would have had you in the, when I was in the early parts of parenting. My youngest is 18.
I made tons of mistakes too. Look, we all made them.
Yeah.
It's the journey of being a parent and a teacher, right? You can't.
Yeah.
There's no perfect path. You got to make perfect.
Right. Right. For sure. So what is the best way to work with little people, especially when they start to have more of their own ideas and the way that they, they want their way? I mean, like what is the best way to start talking to them, the best way to give them, like you have, like you do, is it kind, loving, firm, and fair? How do we do this with children? How do we start this?
Yeah, so such a good question. And I think recognizing that as a parent or as an educator, I use both of them interchangeably, because quite often educators happen to be parents as well. And now I'm a grandparent. So we have 4 grandchildren in our life now, right? And what I'm realizing, and maybe you've seen this too, the times are changing. And the children, so our children, my husband and I, we have 2 daughters. Our children are in their 30s now, closer to 40s, right? So they're older 30s. What we did with them is no longer going to work with this new generation. So I think that is a definite mindset shift that we have to come to terms with, and we have to make peace with it. Is that a countdown? So we have to make peace with that what worked before is not going to work now. And quite often people will tell me, well, this is how I raised them, and this works for them, and this is how it's going to be. The command and demand is not going to work anymore. And so we have to recognize that there's a shift. I would say in the past 15 years, there's so much research that has come out on brain development and social emotional importance that we are now having to rethink. 15 years ago, this wasn't so obvious and it wasn't so prevalent. But as the research is coming out, is telling us that we have to talk to children differently. We have to respond to them differently versus reacting to them. Reacting means the child does something and instantly we have a reaction, shut it down. Don't talk to me like that. Children are for seeing, not for hearing. I spoke, this is how this goes, right? It's an instant reaction. What we're realizing now is that if we want children to respect us as grown-ups, we have to respect them. But there's a misunderstanding with this word respect, because some people think that makes you a wishy-washy parent. You could just become a doormat, that you don't need to hold boundaries. You don't need to, be firm, because I don't want to be mean. I literally have people telling me, my parents were so hard on me, so mean. There's no way I'm going to do that to my children. So they've gone the opposite way, and they've just become with no backbone and no spine. And so the kids have no boundaries, and they're just going away. And you mentioned the KLFF, and we can go deeper in that in a minute. But I think it starts with the mindset, recognizing that these early years matter, and we can lay a strong foundation if we can do it right. But we do better when we know better. We have to know better to do better, right? We have to
I agree with that. I always tried to, I know what I mean, I was raised pretty rough, and I didn't want that to happen. Definitely did not want that to happen. But sometimes it's like the frustration, is like, once you have kids, it's like you realize, oh my gosh, okay, now I kind of understand why they might have been so upset. Maybe my dad took things to the extreme that isn't right.
Yeah.
However, I could understand it sometimes now, like why he might have gotten as mad as he did. But I always wanted my kids to be heard. I always wanted to take that time to listen. That was very important to me.
That already is putting you ahead of the game. So many people don't take the time to listen, and they just feel like the grown-up has to speak and instruct and command and demand. And that's the way you do life together. And it just doesn't work. I mean, I was raised in a home that we didn't talk about feelings or emotions, and you just shut it down, is how we dealt with life. Like we didn't talk about anything. So I didn't have life skills.
Right.
And life skills is something that we need to learn when we are little. I'm now learning them when I'm grown up. So
yeah. It's like in my coaching world anyway, we call it reparenting ourselves.
And you can't be a parent till you get to that life stage in your life, right? You can only parent the child the age that child is. You have to go through life learning how to adjust. Parenting grown kids is different than parenting teenagers or little ones under than 5, right? It changes. And I think it's so important at the end of the day to show respect, to get respect, but then respect is a vague word. People have to unpack respect. What does respect sound like, look like, and feel like?
Yeah.
And all of our definition on respect is different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, let's talk about that more in just a few minutes. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Prerna Richards, and we have been talking about children, how to have respect for them. We have respect for each other, building that relationship. And like Prerna was saying right before we went to break, it's like it changes over the years from little people to teenagers to adults. We have a different relationship with our kids as time goes on. So Prerna, you learned more, like you said, we learn and then we do better later on. How did you start, like, I guess with your kids, where were you in your whole journey of work and learning in regards to their childhood? Like, how did you incorporate what you're learning even with your children now?
Oh, that is such a good question. Such a good question. So I mentioned earlier that my dad had passed away when I was 14. So I don't actually have any memories before 14 because that was my coping strategy. So my brain has wiped out my childhood. I don't have any memories. Wow. So when I had our children, they were the first little humans that I was with. So I didn't raise any cousins. I was not babysitting because I also got married when I was 18 and turned 19 the month after. And my first one was born when I was 20. And the second one was born when I was 22. So I was very young myself. So I didn't know any better. Right. So it was all done with just instinct, just feeling, and just a lot of love, a lot of presence. And because I love being with them, I spent a lot of time with them. It's natural. I am a different grandmother now than I was a mother. I was also a very strict mother because traditionally, I don't know if you know this about Indian culture, we raise children quite strictly. Like strict is the way to go. So I was a very firm, very strict mother. I was also a teacher when my girls were younger. So I left all my patience and kindness in the classroom. And when I came home, I was done. I was very, 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 very firm and very strict. And my husband was the more lenient one. So I see my daughters now parenting our grandchildren, and they're so much more present than I was because I spent so long cleaning the house and doing the dishes and this, all the things that I thought was important to run the house. And if I was to do it again, I would spend more time with them and less time on the dishes. And the dishes could wait. But I'm a different grandmother now because our oldest grandchild is 10. And I have been more steeped into this brain development for the past 15 years, just because life has done that to me and that has become part of my journey. So in what ways is it different? I think I've come up with an acronym, KLFF. And now I stand by this acronym. Children recognize kindness no matter how old you are. I think I would reframe that. Human beings recognize kindness.
Absolutely.
Children of all age, teenagers, grown-ups, it doesn't matter. Kindness resonates. When somebody's kind to you, you feel it. There's an emotion attached to it. There's some feeling in your heart. So kindness, loving, so love that is unconditional. I hear teachers and I hear parents and I hear grown-ups saying things like, I like the way you're listening to me. I like the way you listened. I like the way you follow my instruction.
Yeah.
What that is implying is that I like and love you when you follow my instructions. I like and love you when you listen to me. But love has to be unconditional. I love you regardless. I maybe don't like what you're doing. So separating the act from the human being. Right? It is powerful. So kind and loving. There's no room for meanness. There's no room for harshness. Kind and loving is what humans relate to. The other thing is firmness. Quite often, people will mistake the word firmness with meanness. So I was literally in a classroom yesterday, and the teacher was telling me, I'm struggling being firm because I feel like that would make me become mean. What I said to her was, no, firmness has nothing to do with meanness. Firmness means your words mean something, that you follow through. If you tell the child to do something, if you give them an instruction, or if you say no means no, like we can't have ice cream before dinner. Your firmness is sending the message that this is important and we're not giving in. But we also have to acknowledge and validate with the firmness. So acknowledge and validate would sound like, I understand you're disappointed that you wanted ice cream before dinner. I understand that. I understand this is hard for you, but you can handle it and we can do this. I'm sorry, I'm not going to give in. So firmness and acknowledge and validate doesn't mean that you get to do whatever. There's a boundary. And as grown-ups, we have to give children boundaries. We have to give them some structure because they need this for life skills. They're learning this when they're younger, that I can deal with disappointment because life will bring you disappointment. This is a real emotion. So don't shelter them, right? The last F, so KLFF, the last one is fairness. Children recognize fairness. Human beings recognize fairness. It's a quality that resonates with us. That doesn't seem fair. Fairness, I think, is one of those values that I live in life. I get really triggered when things are not fair. Like it bothers me when there's injustice. That is not okay. You can't treat people like that. No, that is not okay. That is not honest. That's dishonest. That's not okay. Fairness is, maybe these are my values or qualities that I'm now realizing that this is a human connection. And at the end of the day, it's all about relationships and connections. Nobody cares what you know. Nobody bothers unless you connect with somebody. So the way to connect with children, the way to connect with other humans, whether you have a team of people or whether you have a family, KLFF will take us far. If we can just be kind and loving to each other, but also firmness in terms of, I'm the grown-up and I have to make hard decisions. And so you're having a tantrum right now, or you pushing, giving me pushbacks or power struggles, or, teenage power struggles look different from little ones.
Sure.
But just recognizing, I understand that this is hard for you. You are nervous, you're anxious, you're disappointed, whatever the emotion is. If we can mention it, we can manage it. But avoiding doesn't help.
I love that. Yep.
I mean,
if we can mention it, we can manage it.
Yeah, we feel the emotion regardless. There's nervousness there. Nervousness is not anxiety and fear, but nervousness is the space of I'm not sure. We feel it, but if you don't have a name for it, then we're just feeling overwhelmed by it. Right. But if I can name it, I'm like, okay, that's nervousness. Okay, I felt nervousness before. I can deal with this. I got this.
Yeah, that's a big thing. That means a lot to me, because I know, just even for myself and what I teach with my own clients, is that you might be scared to do something, but let's look at the evidence. Let's look at what you've done before. You can do this because you've went through this and this and this and this. You can do it. That's even some of the decisions I've made in my business. I already have evidence. I know I can do it. Yeah, I'm scared, but I know I can do it because I have evidence. And
I think, mindset has so much to do with showing up in life, being resilient and gritty and persistent. growth mindset. There's so much research on growth mindset.
Mm-hmm.
The self-talk that we do is a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you think is going to happen. Whether you
Mm-hmm.
can or you cannot, that is going to become a reality.
Absolutely.
So might as well think positive thoughts, but some people struggle with positive thoughts. So work on it bite size, right? So that's what we do part of coaching. And the reason I'm doing it with younger children, because imagine we could give the children these life skills of persistence, resilience, grit, tenacity, problem solving. If we could instill these qualities when they're little, can you imagine how much more they'll thrive in life than getting into their 20s and then having to take therapy, which is nothing wrong with therapy. I admire therapists and
For
counselors.
sure.
They've done work for it, but it's so expensive to fix it. It's easier to do it right when they're younger.
Right.
What
Right.
happens early in life lasts a lifetime. Ask
It
anybody.
does. Oh
I mean,
boy. Yeah.
your opening sentence was, I had a rough childhood. That's carrying on in your life.
Yep. And for so many people, like I
So
said,
many,
we
it's
are
normal.
reparenting
It's
ourselves.
normal.
It
It's
is.
normal. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So giving them the life skills when they're little, and what I'm realizing is that there's such simple ways of reframing things. And so much of it has to do with the grown up staying calm in the moment. So
Yeah.
when there's a tantrum, when there's a pushback, when there's a power struggle, when there's sibling rivalry, when there's jealousy, because these are real
Yeah.
emotions as well. What you do in the calm brain. So I have an acronym for that as well. SBA. Stop, breathe, and anchor yourself. Before you say or do anything, just anchor yourself.
Yep.
And the anchor statement I use for myself when I'm coaching in a classroom is, I got this. I got this. Just breathe, Prerna, just breathe. Just wiggle your toes in your shoes. Be fully present where your feet are. Ground yourself. Before you say or do anything, just ground yourself, because whatever's then going to come out of your mouth is going to be more balanced and less reactive, but more responsive.
That's a really a brilliant thing. And SBA, that's easy to remember, especially as business owners, right?
Yeah, but
SBA,
it's not
small
that
business. Yeah, that's a really good thing, because man, something, and we've all done this, and boy, I did it yesterday. Actually, I regret something that came out of my mouth, but I did not. I should not have reacted, and I did. And yeah,
Did
it
you know that
happens.
research says 30 seconds is all you need for your
Yeah.
brain to go from reacting to responding? Did you know that? Like 30
Yes.
seconds. 30 seconds. Take a breath,
Yeah.
and you will more likely respond than react. But look, we are all doing life like this. So it's a work in progress. We haven't arrived, and we're not trying to be perfect.
Yeah.
But we are just trying to be aware and work on ourselves. Like
Yep.
if I could be better today than I was yesterday, then I'm on the right path.
Absolutely. We are humans, and recognizing that, I know I've learned over the years that, and I remember this was like, gosh, probably, I don't know, year 2000, maybe something like that. I remember somebody saying, that, you go about your day and you just forgive and you forgive and you forgive yourself and whoever wronged you. Like, you do that. And I remember that. And that's kind of gone through my life, that, yeah, I'm going to make mistakes too. And if somebody doesn't forgive me, then okay, there's nothing I can do about that either. And it's a lesson for me too, that they're learning and we're learning. And
100% forgiveness, kindness, loving, right? We have to be kind and loving to ourselves. We have to show grace for ourselves.
Yeah.
So I can't teach it to somebody else if my self-talk is condemning me.
Yeah.
So it starts with me, right? But I think there's an opportunity, especially when it comes to children. I keep going back to children because I feel like this is an important time. If we can give them this, then so the children who are under 5 right now, that's the, birth to 8 is where I work with. The children who are 5 right now, in 20 years, they'll be 25. I don't know if I'll be on planet Earth in 20 years or not, but they're going to be running the world.
Right.
Do they have the life skills to do this? Right now, the slightest thing that disappoints men, people are like, oh, okay, let me buy it for you. Let me Amazon it. Okay, you're disappointed. Okay, don't cry. Okay, just protecting children from facing some, I'm not saying make them hard, but what I'm saying is give them the skills so they can cope with it. They need the resiliency to learn how to cope with life.
Yep.
Not to toughen them up for life, but just to make them have a growth mindset and have resiliency and have the self-talk and have a DNA that makes them go through life and become successful. And so I feel the urgency of these early years so much.
Yeah, that is so important. It's so important. Gosh, because when you think about that,
right? The capacity to change the next generation.
Yeah.
To not have to need diversity trainings or equity and inclusion trainings because the next generation is already raised being equitable and inclusive.
Yeah.
Can you imagine
Absolutely.
like the potential of changing the next generation is so exciting.
Yeah. Yes. We're going to take a break in a moment, but by the way, Prerna is going to be on a TEDx stage coming up this next year, and there's going to be a lot of what she's talking about now. And imagine that, right? If we can change things now for our future generations, how different the world's going to be,
And that's our hope, right? That's where hope lies. But I also don't want somebody listening to feel like I've missed the boat. My child is over 5 now. All I am now is doom and gloom. Because I always sit in the positive, hopeful space. The brain is the most pliable, flexible organ that we have. It can be rewired. You can learn new skills. You can transition. You can pivot. You can learn. But it's easier to do it when they're younger, so you don't have to then fix something later. That's why I'm talking about the early years. But really, children in general, just if you have little humans, I call them little humans. If you have humans younger than you, show up more intentionally for them. And it's not about money. It's not about materialistic things. It's about giving of ourselves, is being available. Isn't that a human connection, though? That's a human connection.
It is a human connection. And like we've said, several times during the show, it's like Maya Angelou's quote, which I will botch here. But when you learn more, when you are better, you do better.
You do better when you know better.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's it.
We got to take a quick break.
Yep.
Yeah, and then we'll come back for our final thoughts. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. See you in just a moment. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine. My guest today is Prerna Richards, and we've been talking about children and loving them and just teaching the new generation. Oh, gosh. Being kind and loving and firm and fair with them, and just showing them the respect that they deserve as little people, and also, teaching them to respect us as adults as well. So, Prerna, you got into this world 38 years ago. What would be your thoughts for the last few minutes here of how a parent, whether they have a small one now or a little bit older, what is the best way to start reparenting? Say their child is 10. How would they start?
So I think the advice that I would give anyone listening is to connect before you correct. Just take that to heart. The more you connect, the more you understand that other person's perspective.
Yeah.
So we're very programmed as grown-ups to just correct. Especially teenagers come to mind. We correct them a lot. Like, your room is so messy, you're this, you haven't woken up, you haven't done your homework. Like, we constantly correct teenagers.
Yep.
I was talking to teachers yesterday in Utah, and they were telling me, she said, oh my God, listening to you say the connect before correct is so powerful. It was a 2-day session. So she went home that night. She lay down next to her teenager who's 16 years old. And she felt that this sentence weighed heavy on her heart, that she felt that she'd been only correcting her teenager. So she lay down next to her teenager and just apologized and said, I'm so sorry, honey. I've only been correcting you recently. I'm so sorry. Let's connect. What's happening in your world? Just give me a hug. Let's just lie here. And her teenager started crying. And she said the last evening was different. And then when they woke up the next morning, it was a different human being who walked down the stairs for breakfast.
Oh, that just makes me want to cry. I mean, that's like, wow.
So this sentence of connect before you correct can apply to every relationship.
Absolutely.
We're talking about parenting. We're talking about relationships and, educating but really it's the heart of the relationship, because we jump to, have you done this, and have you finished this, and have you are you,
Yep.
the to-do list takes on. But if we can just focus on connecting, so the way I do connecting and correcting is ask and then tell. Before you jump to conclusion, ask and then tell. Just reframe your brain to ask, to understand, ask to listen, ask to connect, and then you can tell. And so, yeah, I am still applying that to all my relationships in my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the little tweaks, right? It's not the big overhaul. You don't have to go buy a new book. You don't have to change your lifestyle. You just have to tweak life as you go.
Yeah.
So connect before you correct. And the more you connect, the less you'll correct. This is also what's really crazy about this sentence. The more you start connecting, the less correcting will happen.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, if any of our own children, or any relationship, if somebody feels of value, it's completely different. Just talking to someone, I value you so much, and even telling them how good they are before you ask for something makes a huge difference.
The value, the need to be valued, appreciated, belong, just recognized. These are human needs, right? We all need these. We're hardwired for this. Every single, even a 2-year-old wants to be of value, wants to feel like they belong. It's an emotion.
No doubt about it. Oh God, I just remember just being a young person myself, always wanting to belong. And now, as life goes on, sure, I want that, but it's not, it has to belong in the right scenarios, not just anything to belong,
I think you're saying something so important. I think as we're aging, at least I can say that for me too, as I'm aging, my belonging in the right group is important. I don't need to belong just for the sake of belonging. But if you're thinking of an organization, if you're thinking of your employees, if you're thinking about your family, every single person in there has a desire to belong. And belonging is an emotion. Either I feel like I belong or I don't. I feel something. Either I feel excluded, either I feel included, either I feel like I belong or I don't. Either way, it's an emotion.
Yeah. Absolutely, it is.
So we could 100%. Be selective with where we want to belong, but we still have a need and a desire, because we're hardwired that way. We want to belong in our family. We want to belong in the work. If we've chosen to work there, we want to belong, and we want to be included.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So where can people find you, especially organizations that would want you to come in and speak? Any type of organizations. Where's the best place for people to reach you?
Thank you so much for asking. Togetherwegrow.online is my website. Okay. And togetherwegrow.online has all the information. I'm on social media. You can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. And yes, I do speaking engagements. That's one of my services that I offer. I offer coaching for schools, helping one classroom. I offer coaching online, in person, but also speaking engagements, motivating, team building, resilience, brain stress, trauma, all of these things, that are very much part of our life, and it's not the other. There's almost every family that has all these things. It's not the other. We're all in it together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I could see you just even in a high school, really talking to teens even. I could see that too.
It's beyond age, right? It's beyond age, because it goes back to that human brain and the human need.
Yeah, absolutely. And those years, they're hard.
Those years are hard. My goodness. It's like aliens possess their brains.
Oh my goodness.
I do remember that vaguely when our daughters were in teenagers. I'm so glad we're on the other side of the 30s now. We're good friends. We're good friends.
Yeah. I know.
You live through that to get to the other side. Oh my God, that was hard. Yes.
I know. I remember certain times where it's like, am I actually going to get through this? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Same here.
But we do.
And we survived, and we thrived, and we got on the other side, and now we can enjoy grandkids.
Well, I'm hoping to at some point. Mine are still a little bit younger for that, but it's a possibility. It's coming.
It'll happen at the right
It
time. The
will
right things will
at the right
happen.
time.
For
For
sure.
sure.
For
Yeah,
sure.
thank you so much, Prerna. It's been wonderful having you here and just having a
Thank
good
you.
conversation. And
Thank you, Martine. I have
sharing.
enjoyed talking with you as well, and I look forward to hearing from anybody listening to this talk and connecting. It's all about the
Yeah,
connections. So let's connect.
absolutely. We will do that. Yes. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And remember, show is every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, every Friday. And if you have a story of overcoming and resilience and you want to be a part of my show, hit me up on just about every social media with Transformation with Martine. And you can also reach out to the station. And again, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next Friday. Have a great night. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Transformation with Martine, real, raw, and vulnerable conversations. Listen or watch live every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com as Martine and her guests have deep, meaningful conversations, sharing empowering stories. Step into your passions and lead with your heart. If you are ready to accept and love you for you, visit martineemmons.com and start allowing transformation to happen today.